So how much does it cost to set up a company in Dubai? And that's probably one of the biggest questions that was on my mind. Just to share with you mine and my wife's circumstances. I work with a company here in the UK that has an office in Dubai, but my wife has her own business and is going through the process of setting up her own entity in Dubai to run that business remotely. And we've got a couple of quotes, and I was just going to talk you through one of them today. Just for the avoidance of doubt, this is not sponsored in any way. I just want to share with you some headline costs of what it can look like to set up a company in Dubai. So if you're looking to set up a company in Dubai, one of the companies you'll likely bump into as part of your research is Virtue Group or Virtuzone. So all I'm going to do is walk you through a proposal that I got from Virtuzone, or Virtue Group, I think it's labeled on this doc, and just talk through the different elements so you can understand some headline costs, I guess just to benchmark ahead of you exploring other options. Let's get into it. So the key thing you'll notice on this front cover of the proposal is it's a setup for a free zone entity. And this area is Mainland, but there are so many free zone entities in Dubai. It's split between Mainland and free zone. And the key difference from my understanding, and in the comments keep me honest, but this is from what I've learned, is it depends on whether you plan to trade locally or let's just call it remotely. Because my wife's business is keeping all its UK clients and it's kind of built remote first anyway, there's no change. So her clients are going to be based in the UK and she's just invoicing them from Dubai. Whereas if you plan to trade locally with other Dubai entities, you'll need to look and explore what a mainland company will do for you and the benefits. I'm just going to flick through some of the, I guess, the boilerplate stuff that outlines what Virtue Group do and all of their core services to get into, I guess, the meat and the bones of the costs and actually the process and timeframes that you need to go through to set up an entity in Dubai. So the key thing on this page is understanding that you have 100% ownership of your LLC. So your entity is wholly owned by you. Some companies and in different places in the world, you actually need a counter signatory or a local to become basically your business partner where they have some ownership to create this entity. You don't need that in Dubai, specifically through this route. I was going to flick over all the boilerplate stuff, but I thought I'd just share with you each free zone. You can see here, the Maiden free zone has a specific mission and vision. So what they're trying to do is build different hubs of free zones that have a specific purpose. I guess the benefit for that is if you are in a free zone that has a specific purpose, whether it's, I don't know, marketing services, blockchain technology, agency consulting, whatever it is it kind of makes sense to try and host and home your company in a place where there's other people doing similar things, purely just from a networking perspective, in my view. But I guess one thing that you probably saw on a previous slide is this flexi desk. Out of all the people I've spoken to that have got an entity in Dubai, as part of their contracts, they have a flexi desk. No one has ever used it. I actually don't even know if they exist or what it looks like. I will try and explore that for you in case that is of interest. So let's get into the costs, because that's probably why you're watching this video. So for a 1-year license to run your company in the Maiden free zone, you're looking at about 16,500 AED. And in GBP, I'll do the exact number, but that feels like about £3,500. And that's the complete company setup. So that includes your establishment card, which is needed. It defines it as 3 activities. And that's basically kind of, I guess if you're in the UK and Companies House, just saying what are your SIC codes, like what is the work that your company will be doing. So you have to list 3 activities. That's all included. You have a company stamp, again, which is needed. But the most important thing here is this is a 1-year license that renews annually at a similar cost as you can see on the screen. So when you're thinking about your budget, it's really about £3,500–4,000 per year just to have your company set up and ran in the UAE. And important to note, that doesn't include a lot of the statutory requirements. Because imagine like here in the UK, if you hit like a VAT threshold, there's certain things you have to do. There are other like ancillary services, depending on the scale of your company, that you'll need to address. And later in this proposal, you can see everything that Virtue Group as an example offer, but it will give you a flavor of some of the considerations you have to make, because it's not just about the setup fee. And underneath that, you can see the cost for every employee visa for the business. So that equates to about £1,100 roughly. Again, I'll put the exact number on the screen, but every employee is going to need a visa. They're going to need that residency ID through their Emirates ID card, and you can't get that Emirates ID until you've done the medical test. There's a link in the description that I'll put. I did a full video of like how I went and got my Emirates ID. And again, important to note, and if you are really looking at moving over there, whether you're just getting Emirates ID, working for another company, or whether you're setting up your own company, I think you've got to kind of create this spreadsheet on Excel or Google Sheets or whatever you use, because a lot of the costs add up. So you've got your setup costs, you've got your visa costs. Your setup cost is annually renewed. Your visa costs, as you can see here, for these are renewed every 2 years. There's a lot of on costs of actually running an entity in Dubai. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of benefits as well, but I just think you have to go into it with your eyes wide open to understand all the different costs. What I'll do is I'll actually flick through this to show you some of the other services and the stat requirements that you'll need to consider depending on the size of your company. Before we get into the stat requirements, just in terms of the timeline of setup, because again, that's probably very mindful for you right now. Firstly, you have to pay for everything up front. I've got 3 proposals and they've all been exactly the same in terms of the process. So get everything paid up front, and then you have to apply for your trade name. You can see here that takes 1 to 2 weeks. Over the next 2 weeks, your corporate documents are executed and your license is submitted and approved. So right now, from making a payment, getting your names done and getting your license approved, you're looking at about a 4-week turnaround. So the next stages refer to the people side of running a business. Firstly, you need to get that immigration card signed off. That will allow you to apply for your employee visas. For each employee visa, you're looking at 3 to 4 weeks to get that fully done, and then another 1 to 2 weeks to actually get your Emirates ID. So all in all, if everything goes perfectly well and everyone's sending the emails when they should be, signing the documents when they should be, you're on your game and they're on theirs, which to be honest, I've had great service with every interaction I've had with the company that I've worked for my Emirates ID, and I had good feedback from my friends, and some of them have used Virtuzone. So you can get this done in, let's just say 8 weeks, but I'd suggest you say 3 months turnaround, start to end. And don't forget, for your Emirates ID, the parts of this journey you need to be in the country. For example, your medical test. Again, if you are getting your Emirates ID, I'll link up the process that I went through, so I broke down the step-by-step of how I got my Emirates ID. So I won't read this out line by line, be pretty boring for you, but I'll put it on the screen just to give you a sense of like some of the things that you'll need to have to hand to start your application. And lastly guys, I thought I'd grab the corporate document that Virtuzone also sent me, which kind of covers all the other services that they do. And the reason I'm showing this on the screen is because there are some other costs you need to consider when you're setting up an entity in Dubai. And I'm not going to talk through this line by line by line, but I thought I'd share it on the screen, and I'll just quickly refer to it now actually, just to share with you some of the things that are top of mind for me right now, because once your company's set up, that's all fine and dandy, but you actually then need to set your bank account up and get all that sorted. And there is a VAT requirement, there is a tax threshold that you need to consider. So if your entity is turning over more than 375,000 AED, you have to be registered for tax, that 5% tax that's now in the Emirate. So you can see here all the different services that are offered from Virtu Group that are, I guess, statutory requirements as well as the nice to haves to help you run your entity depending on the size of your company. And if I just flick down, as you can see here, there's costs for just setting your bank account up. There's your accounting and payroll costs that are a consideration. And if I just roll it slightly further on, probably one of the most important things to be mindful of is your corporate tax and VAT. I'm not going to jump on the internet and to pretend to be a specialist around the corporate tax and VAT in Dubai, but if that is of interest, please put in the comments, because my wife's going through this at the moment, and just to share with you, I guess, some of the thresholds and considerations that you need to have from a statutory requirement, and all those costs, again, they do add up. Hopefully that's given you a flavor of some of the costs and processes you'll go through if you're setting up an entity in Dubai. We're in the process of picking a company to work with. Whenever we've chosen that partner, I'll document that whole thing so you can see exactly what we've paid to set the entity up, what we've paid from a tax and VAT and payroll perspective, and break that down fully for you. If that's of interest, don't forget to follow the channel, and don't forget, this is me, my wife, my 2 boys' journey of relocating to Dubai. Hopefully it helps you if you're thinking about it too. Stay well, stay busy, and speak soon.